The one thing that I do think is true, prioritize your relationship with God over any other relationship because people will always let you down. True love is that you're honest with someone versus some people think that love is saying nice things all the time. It's not. Men and women working, so we'll pay men less, which means the women have to work too, or you can't provide for the kids. So now you take the kids, you kill the family, and now you control everyone. Cons of homeschooling? Yeah, definitely the social aspect. I am tired of not being cool and no one talks to me. And so now working in a startup, this is the goal of like, this is what we need you to figure out. And I'm someone who can be successful with that environment. Problem with the feminist movement is men are not being valued for the providers that they are supposed to be, and women are all like, we can do it ourselves, we don't need men.
The U.S., not only the U.S., but the government is making a lot of money from broken families.
Oh yeah.
Broken homes.
Yeah, sure.
And not only that, but also divorces.
Yeah. Obviously, there's that scripture about, where two or more are gathered, Jesus is there.
All right. Welcome back to the Fortunate Mindset Podcast. Today, we are back again with another episode. Your host, Jonathan Kenda, with my brother, Taylor Kenda.
How's it going?
Man, wonderful. I've been so amazing. A really great week, a really great day. So, what about yourself?
It's been a good day and a very successful week as well.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the talk we have today. So
oh, man. Can't wait to introduce Miss, I would say Anna.
That's perfect.
Hey, Hannah.
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Incredible.
Amazing.
So, how was everything? How was your week?
It was a good week. It was a very, very busy week, but it was very productive. So yeah, I have to agree with Taylor.
Yeah.
Got a lot done.
I'm telling you. But I'm really interested in this talk today because Hannah's very interesting and very intelligent young lady.
Thank you.
We've been waiting for this talk for a while.
I couldn't wait for that. When you told me about Anna, I was like, what does she do? And you mentioned things like she's really a successful woman. She went to Navy. She does real estate. She's really successful. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see her. I can't wait to have her on the podcast. And to that, I was like, I would start with this quote that both of you can really tell me what you think about. It says like, slow success builds character. Fast success builds ego. What do you think about?
I mean, I completely agree. I think that's a very accurate quote. Like those quick wins that are oftentimes maybe even luck, that people will get very overinflated egos, I think, from that kind of thing. But building something real takes a lot of time. And that is what will build your character, because you have to go through a lot of ups and downs to, actually see real success. I think, something that takes time is worth working on. And yeah, I completely agree with that quote.
Yeah. To cultivate something that's long lasting, it may take time. It may be slow at first, but then you see the progressive growth within time. So you're essentially just working on the base. Once you have that base set, everything else on top is going to be able to. It's just going to be built on, or grow from there.
And I think it doesn't build ego because you make a lot of mistakes. You really do. Even small mistakes, maybe you don't make terrible catastrophic mistakes, hopefully not, but you're just guaranteed to make some mistakes along the way, and that's part of what builds that character. So maybe hopefully you do reach a success in the end, but it takes a lot of time to get there, and just you do make mistakes along the way, and everyone has to go through that, I think.
I love that. So Anna, can you just talk a little bit about yourself? We invite a lot of people. We try to introduce them. We try to say that they're entrepreneur, they have done this, they've done this. But today we want particularly yourself to talk. Who is Anna? Tell our people that are listening or watching us right now, who's Anna?
Yeah. I feel like that's such a loaded question. There's so many things I could say.
Bring us to the world of Anna.
Yeah, great question. I've done a lot of things. I'm a person who really likes to try new things. I like to take risk. Risk is something I'm really very comfortable with. I think it helps if you develop a solid foundation in your life, and then if you know who you are, then you can really kind of jump off of that platform and try a lot of things. So that's kind of what I've done. I've chosen to do things a little differently. I didn't go to college. I did go to college. I didn't finish college. Taylor and I met in community college, and I even had my brief stint in the Honor Society, and that's how Taylor and I met. So I kind of went off the path a little bit, kind of like made my own path. I joined the Navy, but I joined the reserves, which is, not typical. Typically, you just go straight into active duty, but I knew there was so much I wanted to try. And the reserves gave me a great opportunity to kind of dabble in that and see if I liked it and kind of have an open door. I think it's really important to keep a lot of doors open and have a lot of different opportunities that you could kind of rely on at any point in your life. So I did the Navy Reserves. I did a brief stint for the FBI, actually. Yes, I was a legal analyst in their forfeiture unit, directly under Chief Division Counsel. So that was really interesting. And then I realized that I didn't enjoy working for the government, and I didn't get to talk to enough people every day. It became too boring and too slow. And
government jobs can be like that.
There's
Man, come on, please, let's not get to that.
Yeah, we can really unpack
FBI,
that.
bro. I'm just kidding. Okay, go ahead.
But so I realized, I wanted to be in a more fast-paced environment and something more competitive, and that really drew out, other parts of me, and the FBI just wasn't doing all of that for me, at least not in the role that I was in. Though I enjoyed it, I got a lot out of that, and then I pivoted to business. I went to work for some people. I was actually their nanny when I was in high school, so I was really good friends with the family. They owned a lawn care company, and I went back to work for them as a recruiter and doing human resources, so I really got to learn the ins and outs of how a small business functions. They had built that business from the ground up. So that was cool. And then, I ended up relocating because of other things in my personal life, and I continued on with recruiting for another, really a small company, and got to learn a lot there. And then that's where, through that whole time, I was kind of figuring out who I am, what I want to do. I also got my real estate license. I got 2 Airbnbs. I actually had a deal for my very first one when I was 21, but it didn't, the contract fell through. The guy breached my contract. I made him pay me for that. So I did, yes, I did negotiate out of that the seed money that I then used to get the next 2. So yeah, that's kind of, and eventually I got into revenue working for a tech company, and that's when I realized I loved software, and not necessarily I don't know how to code. I wish I did. That would be cool.
The back end, front end, and everything.
Yeah, I can't do that. But I love the business side of that, and I think software tools are really interesting, and how they affect different businesses' workflows. And so I got really interested in that, and just interested in revenue, and I enjoyed the competitiveness of that. But then the company I was working for, they did not know how to manage venture capital funding, and they laid off a bunch of employees. I actually survived the first round, and I had only been hired 2 months previously. So I was surprised, but I made it through the first round, and then in the second round, they laid off pretty much everyone. So, but that's when I pivoted to the company I'm with now, which is a startup. It is a software. It's also managed service, sort of agency managed services, which is very interesting. And almost a little bit harder to sell, because you are really selling an unknown. Because the software, you know exactly what a software is doing, but with agency services, that's up to the person that performs the service. So you're selling an unknown product in a way. So it's been a very, very interesting learning experience, and I actually just hit 1 year with that company.
Nice.
So yes, and then still have been doing real estate. Did the Airbnbs for the 2 years, and now I'm working on some of my own software ideas, and I keep a running book of my business ideas. So I'll never run out, but that's the one I'm on right now.
Incredible.
Yeah, from your background, there's a lot to unpack that I want to jump into on this. I want to speak on in this talk here. Cool. One thing in particular I think you missed out about your background.
Oh, I might have. There's so much. I probably missed something. I'm sorry.
It's just the fact that I know you grew up from a more traditional home.
Yes.
Where your father was working.
Yeah.
And your mother was at home, and she took care of you and your siblings.
Yep.
Talk about how that impacted your growth and who you are today.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And it is really an interesting sort of case study on the traditional family model, I think. So my dad started his own business when he was like 27, 28, I think. I wasn't born yet. He's a financial advisor, so he owns his own practice. And he really built that from the ground up. He and my mom got married. She was working. Just like I think she was doing, kind of admin type of stuff for IBM and Lexmark at the time, and she actually supported my dad for a little bit while he built his business. And then he built his business, and she was able to step away from her work, and she worked with my dad. And then once he had grown more, and they were able to, settle down, have kids, and start a family, then my mom, which had always been her dream. She always tells me she wanted to have kids way before my dad was ready to, and she's so thankful that he made her wait, because she wouldn't have had us if she had, it would have been different kids if it had been, years before. So I grew up being homeschooled. My mom, she raised me and my 3 siblings. She homeschooled us, yes. Yes.
We need to talk about that.
We can say that there's a lot there too, and I think that also affected my creativity and entrepreneurialism quite a bit. Being homeschooled actually was, I think, a huge driver in that. But just the way that it affected me really was I saw my dad working 80 to 100 hours a week, because even though he had built his business successfully enough that my mom didn't have to work, and he could afford to have 4 children and a wife staying at home, and that he could pay for our schooling, he still, the reason he was able to do that was because he would work 80 to 100 hours a week. So I really respected that about my dad. And I know I've heard from a lot of different people growing up, and even from some men that are concerned that if they work too much, they won't be able to spend enough time with their kids, and their kids will just feel like they have an absent father. But I've always thought it was very interesting to hear that, because I never felt that. And some days I wouldn't, see my dad till, right before I was going to bed for the day. But I would see him in the morning before I went to work, and then I would see him, right before I went to bed. And I always knew, we would always ask him if the stock market was up or down. That's what we would ask him at dinner. Yeah, and we'd be like, was gold up today? And we just thought that was so fun. So, but he would share with us, things about his work, and he still spent a lot of time with us. He did always take Sundays off to be with the family, because obviously I was raised in a very Christian home. And so Sunday was the Sabbath. It was Saturday night into Sunday was the Sabbath. We didn't watch TV. We didn't, go out and do anything. It was always like time at home with the family. And I think that's probably part of what kind of instilled in me that, my dad's priority was the family, even if he was out of the house working most of the day. And then my mom was, at home teaching us and cooking and cleaning and taking care of us. And I really did my own thing growing up. So I would go off to my room, and I would rearrange an entire room. Because I was just creative, and it was like an outlet for my creativity. Or I would play with, we had those pop-up tents. I don't know if you guys had those when you were kids, but we would have those pop-up tents, and we would form tent cities all through the house. And and just so it really unlocked my ability to be creative. And so for me, it was kind of like I wanted to turn everything into sort of a job, like sort of a project, so it's kind of always in me to sort of be an entrepreneur. And that's who my dad was. So I kind of really assimilated with that, or was familiar with that. It came naturally to me to be like my dad. And I've always respected my mom, but I have never wanted to really stay at home and just not do anything. And I've always instead taken my dad's work ethic and his like, drive and his motivation and just, I'm kind of blanking on the word, but it's one of his favorite words. It's not endurance, but it's kind of similar. Perseverance, I think, actually. Yeah, he has a lot of perseverance. And as I've gotten older, I'm working on building my own businesses, I now understand how much he was actually working, how hard it actually was.
The way you describe your dad, I would say, I mean, it's true, he does have a lot of perseverance.
Yeah.
I think those quality traits do fall into what I would qualify as a traditional man.
Yeah.
So would you say that in today's world, do we still have traditional men?
So few of them.
Oh, man. Can you define that? Why did you say like it's so few of them? Like, why?
So, no, great question. I mean, I would say like just my generation and, probably a few years older than me and all the years younger than me, a lot of there's just been this feminist movement, and a lot of men are no longer relied on as a sole provider for the household. And it's interesting for me because I do believe in that, and sometimes I have my days where I'm like, I just want to find a man to work all the time and make a lot of money, and I'm just going to stay at home. Wow. And I'm just going to clean the house, and it'll be so easy and my life will be so chill,
Yeah.
And sometimes I find myself kind of like just wanting that like traditional type of life, but there are other times where it's really just in me to work on something, and I just want to work on these projects, and I find it so interesting. And so it's kind of been a struggle for me because I do believe in that traditional model, but I also do think that, some women really have strengths that are outside of the house. Yep. And so there's this feminist movement, and it's really, really making life harder for men, I think. Because men are not being valued for the providers that they are supposed to be, and women are all like, we can do it ourselves, we don't need men. And I think we do need men. I think it's a partnership, but I do think there are some women that...
It's a strong statement. A lot of women think they don't need
exactly.
men anymore.
Yeah. And it's not... Yeah. It's just so sad, I think. And I think it's creating the type of men we have nowadays, which are not going to be chivalrous. They're not going to be respectful. And, even if I can take care of myself, even if I can make my own money, I still want the guy to pay for everything, I still, I still need to, I feel like that's a way to show respect to the woman. It is, so it's in a very interesting balance, especially for someone like me who really does enjoy doing my work, you know?
Sure.
So, yeah.
So talking about that, we've talked about traditional man, traditional family, traditional relationships, and all of this stuff. So, what are your thoughts on gender? I would say gender role in relationships, right? So, as tradition, and how would you define it with today's modern relationship?
Yeah.
So, the role of any gender in a relationship as traditional role in the family with today or modern relationship. How would you define that? How can we redefine to make it together?
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting topic. So I think there's a lot of aspects of the traditional relationship between a man and a woman that I think should still be preserved, and sometimes in relationships they aren't. And I've been in a serious relationship in the past where, I lived with the guy, and so you try and juggle that, close of a relationship, and, how do you split the bills, and how do you, who pays for what? And obviously, I grew up with my dad paying for everything because my mom was at home, and that's where her value was. And then, when I was in this relationship, I was working, he was working, and so you kind of just do it half and half. But I did find I didn't really respect. I ended up not being able to respect him because, and maybe that's just because of the way I grew up and the relationship model that I have from my mom and dad. But I really began to think about it more and kind of realized that for me, I want the man to still, I feel like he's not a man if he can't provide. Like, I want to be able to, like, not work if I can't. Like, what if I get pregnant and I decide I want to stay home with my kid? You know, I should be able to.
And that's reasonable.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And I think that that's what innately men are made to do, is to be able to provide. And women are nurturers. Like, we're supposed to take care of things. And that's part of why some women, like myself, are so good at building something and creating something and stewarding that and taking care of it, because we are caretakers and we're nurturers. So if that's not children, it might be a business, you know? And that's kind of what I've done. And I feel like I'll make also an amazing mother someday, I hope, because the care that I would put into my work, into my business, I can also do that in my house and with my children. And so I kind of want the option, I definitely want the option to be able to do that someday. And I think that is just really, if you look at how the world started and you look at history, and you see what has been the most successful over the course of history and what is the norm over the course of history, which is that the man provides and the woman takes care of things. Like, that's what it's supposed to be.
Exactly right.
I feel like I want to, oh my days, I want to say like, we're living in the world whereby everything that you're saying right now, it's being controversial, like to the point that some women don't believe that they are meant to just stay being at home, stay mother, cooking and doing all, providing care for children and all of this stuff. And as we just mentioned before, like some don't even believe like they need men in their lives. So you saying that, is it because you grew up in a certain traditional family where you saw your father working up to 200 hours a week? Or
Not 200.
I think like 100, but
100?
I don't know if he could sleep if it was 200.
I was like, because I was like 200 hours a week. I was like, oh, it
But
should
still,
be like
100 is a lot.
It's a lot.
That's
100 is
100,
a lot of
it's a lot of
hours.
hours.
So as I've been saying now, do you think it's because you grew up in such environment, or it's really your belief, something that you found out like that is how things should be?
Yeah, I think, well, and you just look at like psychology, and anytime someone grows up a certain way, that sort of innately becomes who they are and what they believe. And unless they choose to go outside of that norm and, you know, step outside their bubble and form a new worldview, then that's where you came from, and so that's what you believe. So I think there's some women that have watched maybe their mom was a single mom who like struggled, and maybe they didn't have a father that provided, and so their worldview is men are terrible, I don't need a man, I can take care of myself, I watched my mom do it and I can do it too, you know. And so I think it all kind of stems from where your world view is, and if you choose to actually like take a step back and analyze and look at history and see, you know, really how should the world work? You know, what actually is proven to be the best model? Who are we, you know, supposed to be? And I think that if someone did that, the person in the situation of like having a single mom would actually look and realize that she was just in a broken system. And that doesn't mean that women don't need men just because of her situation. It's because, you know, she wasn't surrounded by strong men in the first place, and that's not her fault. But, you know, that's not what she needs to, I think, apply to the whole world, that viewpoint, you know? So I don't know if I answered that question fully. But
yeah, sure, you did. You did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say the building block for you, or for just a society in general, is it a traditional home where there's a mother, there's a father, kids, or more of a broken home, or just a father, or just a mother, and then taking care of kids? Which way would you say is a building block for a society?
For society, I think is absolutely the stable father providing for his wife and his children. I think that's and that's naturally how humans operate if you are like a stable and a whole human and, you know, person, you're not a broken person, then naturally that's what we all gravitate towards, and that's how we naturally operate. And I think, again, if you look at history, that's really how, for generations, that's how it's been. And the whole feminist movement is about, oh yeah, look back at history. Generations, men have oppressed us, which I think is very wrong in some ways. It is true in other ways. Like I am thankful that I can get a credit card on my own. I can buy a house on my own as a single woman. I do think women should be allowed to do that. Previously, you know, women couldn't vote. Women couldn't buy property. They couldn't even open a bank account or have a credit card without a husband. And that, I do think that is wrong, and I'm happy that women have equal rights now. I'm all about that. I think the problem with the feminist movement is saying, you know, we can run the world. We don't need men. And that's kind of where it goes downhill. And then you don't have a stable family. It's out of balance. And there's boys nowadays being raised by women with these feminist mindsets, and they don't have a strong male figure in their life. And I think that's part of the, you know, some of the men that we see today have been raised that way. And then they don't continue on a good cycle, essentially.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where society finds itself, which there's a lot of there's different controversial things that comes up whenever we're in those types of situations, and things like homosexuality and all sorts of different different stuff. But
it's a lot.
I want to speak on the money aspect of the family, like the fact that in today's world, it's very hard for a family to just be for a man to just be working, and then the rest of the family doesn't do much, because with one income, it's very hard for most families in the U.S. for there to be economic freedom for that family, or financial freedom for that family. So what would you say is the specific amount that I would say a man or a family needs to be making for there to be financial freedom, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of factors kind of go into determining that amount. Obviously, what state do they live in? You know, what's the cost of living in that state? And then 2, how many kids are there? 3, what is your, you know, preferred quality or standard of living? So if you don't care if you have food stamps and you eat like terrible food from Walmart and you buy like from the resale shops, like if that's the kind of life you're okay with, have 5 kids and make $50,000 a year, like whatever, live in California. But if you want to live like a very nice lifestyle, you want to eat good food and you want to be able to take vacations, depending on what state you're in, the man probably needs to make at least 6 figures. And it really goes back to, I think, and you know I love my conspiracy theories, I think the government, it goes all back to the New World Order, and the government's trying to essentially like alienate or not alienate, that's not the right word, but like destroy that nuclear family, I think. Isn't that what it's called? Like the government is trying to destroy that and has been for some time. So essentially once they seized their opportunity with women asking for equal rights, and they said, okay, now women can work, and so we can have men and women working, so we'll pay men less, which means the women have to work too, or you can't provide for the kids. So now we can throw the kids in the public education system, indoctrinate them, and take over the world, you know? So you take the kids, you kill the family, and now you control everyone. And destroy the food system while you're at it, and, you know, just indoctrination in all the public schools and the colleges too, and jack up prices, ruin the economy.
Part of the reason why I would say why is the U.S. Not only the U.S. but the government is making a lot of money from broken families.
Oh yeah,
broken homes.
Yeah, sure.
And not only that, but also divorces.
So
there's a lot of money. The U.S. makes way more money from broken families, broken homes, rather than a unit. Nucleus of a family.
Yeah, sure. So going to that, talking about education, getting kids, bringing them in public schools and all of this stuff. So let's go back to the way you were educated.
Yeah.
You say like you were homeschooled, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say about that? Was it a good experience? Because most of people think like when you are homeschooled, you don't really have that social skills. You kind of be introverted, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like you be weird.
Right.
She's the exact opposite of that.
Oh, thank you.
She's not antisocial.
So now, seeing you as a person, talking, having all these skills, entrepreneur, being a businesswoman, having all the stuff that you're trying to do together, that just gets my intention or by my attention to be like, what is the pros and cons of being homeschooled?
There was a woman who, we did like these homeschool co-ops, and so you would go to your classes like 2 times a week. It was like a college model. So it was like if you were in college, but it was for high school and, grade school. And so there was a woman who, she used to teach math, and she had actually taught me pre-algebra. And then my mom took me back into the home for algebra 1, and it didn't work out. And so then this woman who had taught me pre-algebra with the homeschool co-op, she had ended up breaking away from the co-op, and she did her own tutoring at her home. And so I ended up going once a week. I did my geometry, and then once a week I did my algebra with her. And my algebra was actually one-on-one, and then my geometry was in a small class of like I think there was three or four other classmates in there with me. And so that system worked, and that structure allowed me to learn my math, and I was able to do 2 subjects in 1 year, and all my other subjects at the same time, and it was totally fine. So I think I'm a person who doesn't really like rules, and I don't really like to be just confined by structures of society and like someone telling me that I have to do this in this order or whatever. And so I really liked that freedom being homeschooled, and it worked well for me. So like in 9th grade, I didn't want to do algebra. In 10th grade, I wanted to do both of them. And
interesting. So you think it's a freedom, it's not a constraint.
Yeah.
Some people see it as I'm just locked in the house all day. I'm in front of the computer learning. So they don't see many advantages.
Right, and I think that one thing that I've found in my professional life is that a lot of people have trouble with a flexible like work environment or a flexible schedule. So I work for a startup right now, and it's kind of the Wild West. And when I came in and started with them, it was kind of like the world is your oyster, do what you want with it. And so because I had grown up with that same environment, which was here's your school, figure it out. Like, figure out what schedule you want. Figure out when you want to do this homework and when to do that. And if you get it done super fast, guess what? You have so much more time to do anything else that you want now, And so I wasn't, like, thrown into this, like, structured public school 8 to 5 you're going to school, or like 8 to 3, whatever they do for school. And like, you have, 30 minutes for this class, 30 minutes, whatever. And then, you have homework at the end of your day. Instead, I could get my school done. If I got it done in a few hours in the morning, I got to do whatever I wanted the rest of the day. And so now working in a startup, it's kind of that same thing where I've been tasked with figuring, this is the goal of like, this is what we need you to figure out. Go figure out how to do it. And I'm someone who can be successful with that environment, and not a lot of employees can. We've actually let 3 people go that weren't able to make the cut because I continually surpassed their abilities. And I was originally brought in at the lowest level. I was below all of them, and then except for one. And then ended up being able to push my way forward because I was someone who could work with very little oversight and very little structure. And I think part of that is just who you are as a person. But I do think the freedom of homeschooling really just set me up for success in that area.
What would you say are some cons then?
some cons of homeschooling. Yeah, definitely the social aspect. It took me a long time to really, I was super shy, super shy, which is surprising that I've turned out the way that I have. But I remember it probably took me from till I was like 16 years old.
Really?
Yeah, till I was like 16, I was super in my shell. So
I just changed that.
It is funny.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny. So what really happened was I literally thought to myself one day, I was like, I am tired of not being cool and no one talks to me. Like, cause I would go to youth group because I grew up in the church, and I would go to youth group and I like didn't know how to talk to people. And like, I just wasn't like, I didn't have jokes, you know, like I wasn't funny because I was always so serious and I was so nerdy and so in my head. And so I just kind of like, one day I was like, I'm so tired of this. And I was like, the only way to get over this is literally just to put myself out of my comfort zone and keep pushing and keep pushing. And so every opportunity from 16 on, and I still do it to this day, every opportunity I have to push myself out of my comfort zone and make, like, if something seems like that's a little bit scary, like I don't want to go up and like start that conversation, but I just make myself do it. And it's just exponential growth if you just push yourself in life like that. So, yeah. But it was definitely a con. It's one of the cons that you're not just forced into it from the time you're very, very young. You really have to create that environment for yourself.
What would you say to a person if they're even in a public school or private or even homeschooled, if they're dealing with that same anxiety of not being able to be as charismatic or share their personality because they're too into themselves and too shy. Yeah. What would you say to that person?
I mean, really what I just touched on, which is what I essentially said to myself, was you just have to get out there and like you just have to push yourself. You know, it's like looking at a mountain and being like, I want to get to the top, but not doing anything. Like, if you want to get to the top of the mountain, you just have to climb it. So that's kind of, I think, an analogy that applies to a lot of things in life. But yeah, that's what I would say. You just have to push yourself and give yourself some grace too. Like, you might not, you know, hit the nail on the head every time. You might not go as far as you want to every single time, but just each step forward gets you somewhere.
That's good. So, well, I'm glad, I'm proud of the personality that you've been able to
She said something that I just really love so much, and it reminds me of this quote that a guy was talking about, that if you are an overthinker and you're going through a lot of things, you don't know where you're going, don't just focus into knowing what is the end of what is going to happen to me, but just think about what is the next step.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put? If you can see your next step, okay, yeah, put your feet on that. Then from there, you will see your next step again. Just go little by little. I just love that.
Yeah.
That you don't need to be
true.
just like containing yourself, waiting, just give that push, give that, tell yourself, hey, I'm going to climb this mountain, and you just go.
It's so true.
It's so inspiring. I love that.
Yeah.
So growing in a family where you say you've been going to church, right? So your family was religious, right? Yeah. And then you say you grew up in church, you've been in relationships. So how would you define that, this spirituality, impact relationships, and how can men and women really help each other respecting their role in the relationship or in the family?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's definitely one that I am not perfect at by any means. I think it's a tough thing to do. But I really look to my parents as a strong example of that. And I think that what they do, that really, I mean, the Christian faith is just very important to both of them. So I think they prioritize, actually over each other, they actually prioritize their relationship with God. Because, and even if, you know, I haven't always been a perfect Christian, I have plenty of friends who aren't, but the one thing that I do think is true is you have to prioritize your relationship with God over any other relationship, because people will always let you down. And even if they have the best of intentions towards you, like there's going to be that day where, you know, like my dad and my mom, for example, where, you know, my dad is just tired and grumpy and my mom gets slightly hurt by maybe his attitude that day, but she can't, she can't have him on such a pedestal that he's in like a position of God in her life, because he's going to be like that sometimes, you know, just like vice versa. Yeah. And so I think the first step is your relationship with God has to be first and foremost, whatever that looks like for each person. And you cannot put someone else, especially the person you're married to, you're in a relationship with, in like that position of God in your life, because they will just let you down. And then on top of that, I think it's there's a lot of scriptures in the Bible that really do talk about what that relationship between a man and a wife is supposed to look like, and how to keep God, the center of the relationship. And so I know when my parents make decisions, they're both, if they can't decide on something, they're both taking time away from each other to actually talk to God and hear from God on their own, as to what, they feel God is telling them. Sure. And I think then they will come back together and they will share, this is what God told me, this is what God told me, and be able to sort of bring that together to come to a decision. And then obviously there's that scripture about, where two or more are gathered, Jesus is there. And I think that's just praying together is really important, especially if, you're both facing something. So, yeah.
I love that. But how can they support each other in their respective roles and responsibilities as a family or as in the relationships?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one, because it can really depend on a lot of different factors, and different people have sort of different interpretations of really what their role is. So if you're going off of traditional roles that the Bible specifies for a husband and a wife, then I think it's like just holding each other to just knowing the scriptures and knowing what it says, and this is how you're supposed to live, and holding each other to that standard by, reminding each other when, you see someone slipping. And that's what I think true relationships are. If I want any of my friends, if I'm like not doing something right, or I'm like, just created something that's terrible, in my business, or I made a PowerPoint slide that was, I was like, hey, what do you think? And if it's terrible, I really want someone to tell me that,
Accountability is very important.
And so I think that's kind of, that goes with spirituality too. And those roles is just holding each other accountable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have somebody that's accountable to everything you're doing, it applies not only just in relationships, business, everything that you're doing.
Exactly.
So it also, it helps you be a better version of yourself whenever you have someone watching over you, or especially as we're speaking in relationship, in terms of relationship, looking out for each other's best interests also comes into play.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good perspective. That in terms of just the roles that men and women can have, if you're accountable, keeping account of each other's works, it helps you build more respect for the other person as well.
I think so. Yeah, and that's true love. I mean, true love is that you're actually honest with someone, and if they slip up, you're actually going to tell them you really messed up, like you need to fix that, versus some people think that love is saying nice things all the time, but it's not.
You touched on something that just like wakes me up. Like, I'm not saying I was sleeping, but so what I'm trying to imply is, so many people in relationship are so intrigued and so hurt to the point, like when they do something wrong and their partner tell them, hey, so this was not good, this wasn't right, okay, and they feel hurt about either their partner telling them that. So but you telling that, oh, it should be accountable, so they should be telling people. So how do you think a person can really approach their partner in the right way without making them feel hurt, or without judging them, but telling them in the right way that they have done something that is not okay, and maybe to help them having that with maybe empathy, right, instead of judging them based on what they've done wrong.
100%. I think that's a really important thing to think about. I think and you use the word judging, and I think that is actually one of the first things is you can't come at it from a place of judgment, but actually, again, from that place of love, where it's because you want this person to be the best version of themselves, and whatever they just did was not that. Or maybe it's like a relationship thing, and maybe they did something directly to hurt you, and so it's, yes, for yourself, you need to always look out for yourself, but also for the sake of the relationship, you want to have the best relationship that you can, and hopefully you both share that same goal. And so coming at it from that place of, you know, what you said made me unhappy, or that was very hurtful, that was very upsetting, you know, whatever that is, and coming at it from a place of, I want us to be at peace with each other, and I want this to be a healthy relationship, so I'm not going to sweep this under the rug, I'm going to bring this up. And then the other person has to have an open mind and come at it from a humble point of view, and in a place of understanding that they're not perfect, and that sometimes you do things that you think are totally fine and it hurts someone else, and you just have to understand that and be willing to be humble. And I mean, I think when it's two reasonable people, that's easy to reach that place of peace and reconciliation. There's always those relationships that are abusive, and one person's like super crazy maybe, and so the other person is being accused of something they didn't do. You know, there's always these outliers of you know, very, very bad relationships where certain things I think don't apply across the board. But in generally speaking, with I think two like solid people, you just come at it from a point of view of not like, you know, being crazy and hysterical and you're just so mean and that was terrible, you know, but from a perspective of, you know, like I'm a mature person, but that did hurt me. Yeah. And I want us to be, you know, have a peaceful relationship, and I want us to both be happy, and that really didn't help. And also taking care of it right away, I think, is so important. I don't have a problem with confrontation. I think a lot of people do, and a lot of people are very passive. Yeah. And so I really think you have to take care of things right away, too. Yeah.
That's great. That's incredible. So Taylor, what do you think about that?
I actually wanted to add one thing. We'll just kind of shift things a little bit. There's something that was coming to mind. I have a question in regards to the biblical aspect, biblical approach towards marriage. So the thing I want to get to here is, should a couple that's looking to get married, should they approach the marriage towards as the traditional route where you would court, dates, and then get into marriage, or should there be a freeway about it where you can live together, do this and that, and then eventually even have kids beforehand? Should there be a structured way before, or what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. I was obviously raised with, you know, you follow the Bible to a T. You don't have sex before marriage. You don't live with someone before you're married. You know, all of that was really ingrained into me from, you know, very young age. So I do believe, technically speaking, if you want to have a truly biblical marriage, then you do the traditional courting, you don't move in together, you don't sleep with each other, you don't do any of that before you get married. And that is, you know, what my parents did, and that's what my sister did with her husband, and it's a very commendable route. And I will be honest, I wish that I felt like I could do that route, and I don't know that I necessarily can, and I mean, I've kind of already ruined my chances there. But I think it's very commendable, and honestly, like, it probably is the way that the world really is supposed to work. And because the amount of you know, hurt you go through when you are super intimate with someone, and then that relationship doesn't work out, and then you end up you just stack really up so much baggage.
Exactly. That baggage, I would say, I mean, if I could speak to that, is if you're in this relationship, you're in this relationship, and then you get to another one, and then you get to another, you're putting up, you're carrying spirits with you. Exactly. Into when you eventually get married. Yeah. You're eventually carrying all those spirits into the person that you'll be with.
And I think it makes your life a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some people think that, you know, oh, but you know, it's life experience, you know, and it's all part of who you are, and they have a past too, and that's fine. And you know, that is fine. It's not, so I really don't have a stance right now at this time in my life. I actually really don't have a stance as to you shouldn't do this and you should do this, because
okay.
I'm not a perfect person.
Nobody's perfect.
No, and
Nobody's
I haven't taken that perfect route, and so I cannot sit here and say like, absolutely,
sure.
this is the way I'm going to go, and this is
Definitely.
what everyone should do, because I don't frankly know. You know,
That's okay.
I don't know.
That's okay.
And yeah, and but I think there's a lot of just overall mental and spiritual health benefits to doing the traditional route, and that really is probably what, you know, life is meant to be like. So
you mentioned about something where I've heard just you said that probably like they have their past and I have mine too, right?
Yeah.
But it's just something that I overheard someone saying that most of the time some people don't really, especially women, don't ask men their past because they don't want men to ask them their past too.
Yeah.
So, and then it goes to the point whereby they say, I want you to give me your points of view on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so they say like men care about women's past, but women care about men's future. So what do you think about that? Is it true or not? And why?
No, I think that's a very interesting point. I think that statement is not entirely true. I think it might be true when it comes to low IQ women, which is unfortunately the majority of America, well, probably the world.
The world.
And I think if you are an intelligent woman, you care about the past and you care about the future. Both are important, and the man should feel the same way about you. Like, he has every right to care about my past and my future, just as I for him. And I think that if you are going to have a successful future, you have to be completely open about your past and whatever it is that looked like. And I think it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on what happened in your past and, you know, how you speak about that, what you've learned from that, what you've taken out of that, and what your goals are for the future. And if that person can align with you on, you know, an understanding of your past and a vision for your future, then great. That's what makes it work. Yeah.
Sure. So let's go a little bit about your business and all the stuff you do. So you said you grew up in a family where your dad was already a businessman, like built all his business by himself, having your mom supporting all the stuff. So before even entering into business, do you think that you can be that sort of a woman who won't just work, stay home, and let your husband lead and bring everything at home, but you be just there cooking, cleaning, feeding kids, and staying home as a home wife, if as they call it?
Right. So, sorry, is the question that do I see myself being able to do that?
Yeah. Would you see yourself doing that?
So it's so funny. So, yes, I feel like if I did that, I would have the cleanest, most organized house. It would be so efficiently run. It would be like everything would be in its place. I would have a good schedule for the kids, but I would make sure that they had their free time and their creative time, but like we would get stuff done. And yeah, so I feel like I could absolutely do that. It would probably be like I would be super extreme, I feel like, you know, like I wouldn't be one of those super carefree moms that's just like, yeah, the house is a mess, the kids, I don't actually know what they're doing right now, you know, but it's fun, you know, whatever, like I would make it my job, you know, and then the way that I like attack my work and my job and building a business, that is what I would then have to apply to my household, right? Because I have to, that's in me, and I have to channel it somewhere. So if I was a stay-at-home mom, yes, I could do it. and my kids would be in a lot of activities, and, you know, I'd be supporting them doing a lot of different things. I feel like because, like, I just have to put my energy and ability to run things, like, I have to put that somewhere. So I could do it, but I want to do that, and I also want to do my businesses.
So that brings me to this now. So if you say, okay, you can be a stay-home wife or a stay-home mama, so won't you care about all the degree you did? You went to school, right? Your parent probably paid for all your school. You went to university. You went to the college. Everything you did, right? And then you find a man and husband tells you, like, you know what, Hannah, I make enough.
Right.
A lot of money for both of us, even for our future kids.
Yeah.
To be there.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, as a man, I will support every single expenses and everything. So stay home.
Right.
But remember, you have done all the degrees.
Yeah.
Right? You have gone to university.
Not only that, but you also maybe
you started already making money by yourself.
Right.
And then it just tells you, like, Anna, stay home.
Yeah.
You think it's a dream killer?
Do you think, like, it's a dream killer, or?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think it depends on, like, what you're doing. So there are a lot of very successful women out there that make good money, but they hate their jobs and they hate their life. And, you know, they do that because they don't have a man providing for them. So they're forced to come up with a way to make money, and it's a smart, intelligent woman's gonna, you know, do well even if she doesn't like her job. And so I think in that case, a man coming and saying you can just stay at home and whatever, like, great. She would probably be like, you know what, I went to school, I got the degrees, I made the money, and I did that while I had to do it, and now I don't have to anymore, and that's great. And then chalk it up to life experience, move on, and now get to stay at home. Great. But I think if you're passionate about what you do, if you love your job, maybe you have the option to stay at home, but I don't think it would be a dream killer, because if you have a real dream, if you have a real passion, nothing can kill that. No amount of money no one could actually pay me any amount of money to not try. If someone came and offered me like $10 million today, but I couldn't use that for a business, I could just live off of it, right? But, like, I couldn't use that to start a business. I couldn't put that into my dreams and my passions. I would turn it down, because I would rather follow through with my ideas and my, you know, project. I think I can make a cool product. I think I can make something real. And so no one could really pay me any amount of money to kill that, you know? So
to bring the conversation back in the middle here, there's benefits to both.
Yeah.
The traditional and modern family.
Yeah.
A woman doesn't necessarily only have to stay at home.
Right.
For the family to succeed.
Yeah.
There's opportunities for her. I think whenever the family unit was coming together, the intent was for both parties to be able to help each other out. Whether if both of them needs to go work and then come and support the kids, there's benefits to that. So we've seen examples where it works, where only the man is working and the woman is at home. That works. But we also seen both, and other examples where both parties are also working, or they're collaborating on projects where they're doing businesses together. They have all sorts of different entrepreneur things going on, where that also works for them. So it really just depends on the dynamic of the family that you have.
Yeah,
it
I
varies.
agree.
But it both works.
It does.
Both things work.
Definitely. So I just wanted to have an opinion on that, like what you think about it, because we know, like, there are a lot of traditional men out there. Yeah. So a lot, and they think that way too, right? That they don't want their wives or their women to work. They want them. They make enough.
Right. Yeah.
Like for them to stay home.
Yeah.
And they believe that if the woman stay home, the house will be really safe and everything organized and like that. Yeah. So that's why. So many people might be really following or listening to us right now, but asking that question, like, what if somebody wanna stay home?
Yeah.
So what if? Because most of people will be like, okay, if I'm a stay-home wife, it might be boring sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and I want to do something.
Yeah.
I don't want to just stay there with kids and
Yeah.
just, hey, mom, on all of this stuff. So, yeah. And then if we want to get back a little bit, the conversation, as I mentioned before, if unless Taylor has something to say, into the business part and growing up in a family where business was over there. So what's first? I know we can all grow up in a family where dad is a businessman, mom is a businesswoman, or anything like that. But a kid will grow up in a really entire different route or way. So, but what first inspires you to get yourself in business? Why did you decide to start entrepreneurial route or way and start investing?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was just kind of always in me. Like growing up as a child, it was just kind of my first instinct was to create something. And so I would actually like design houses. I would draw blueprints for houses because I thought that was cool, and I loved houses. That's part of how I got into real estate, was because I just find that so interesting. And I would design things. I would draw up like interior design things. So just being creative and making something. I sewed purses, and then I would get on Microsoft Word, and back when we had like this fat computer, eventually it got updated, but when I was like 5 or 6 years old, it was this fat computer. I figured out how to get onto Microsoft Word, and I would type in snow letters. Do you guys remember that font that was literally snow was on I thought it was so cool. It's so old, and I'm not even that old, but I thought that snow letters was like the coolest thing. And so I would type up flyers, and I started 2 businesses. One was called Hannah's Handbags, and I would literally sew purses. I got these my grandmother did a lot of sewing, and so she taught me, and I did sewing lessons too. And she taught me how to sew, so I would make these purses and I would sell them. I would print out invoices for my clients. I think I maybe sold 2 or 3 purses, it didn't really turn into a big thing. But and then I made Stupendous Stationery was another one, and I would design my own greeting cards on Microsoft Word, and then I would sell thank you cards, or I would do custom like birthday cards for my siblings' birthdays. And just because I was like, I want to make something, it just naturally came to me, like I need to make something and I need to sell it. And it was just second nature. Like I just feel like I must have been born with that. And I don't know that anyone ever really taught me. It was just observing the world and realizing that that's commerce, and that's what makes the world go around, and I just wanted a part in that. So I did those businesses. I would do restaurants with my siblings. Anytime my parents had someone over for dinner, we would always ask if we could do the serving. And we had, growing up in this one house we lived in, the dining room had a sliding door to the kitchen. And so we would shut that door. We would be back in the kitchen preparing the meal, because my sister was very good, Rachel, she's very good at cooking. And so she was like a professional chef when she was like 10 years old. And so, and so she would literally cook for my parents' dinner guests, and I would type up the menus, and then I would take photos even and put my photos in. I put some clip art in there too, and then me and my siblings would like put on an apron and put on like hats or whatever, and we would pretend to be a wait staff, and I was like running a restaurant. So we did that. I mean, just so many different things. And then when I was 14, my parents, when I was 13, they moved to the neighborhood they live in now. Very nice neighborhood, a lot of wealthy people there, and a lot of kids in the neighborhood. And so I was 14, and I got on my bike, and I had made flyers, 8x10 flyers. I put a photo of myself. I put testimonials of people that I had babysat for. And then I also made business cards. And I ordered them from Vistaprint. I thought it was very cool. And I got on my bike and I rode around the neighborhood, and I knocked on people's doors. And I said, hi, I just moved. I've been babysitting for, my church and for home group and whatever. And like, family, friends, and I was like, here's testimonials, here's my references, here's a business card. I want to earn money. If you would hire me, I would be happy to babysit for you. And people actually called me, and I got a lot of jobs, and I built a whole babysitting network. And then so my first job was when I was 14. There was a family that lived on our like cul-de-sac, and the mom was a nurse, and so sometimes she would have to work like a few days a week. She would have to work till like 7 or 8 p.m. And her son got off the school bus at like 3:45. And so, or no, it was like 4:15, and I would get to his house at like 3:45, and 3:45 to 4, and I'd wait for him to get off the bus, and then I was there when he got there, and I think I got paid like $5 an hour. And then they kind of bumped up my pay a little bit, but I did that till I was 17. And I would do a bunch of other jobs along with that. I would go babysit for people at random, just random times, and then every summer I was a full-time nanny. And then when I was 16, I got my job, my first more real nanny job, where it was very consistent. Because I would do school on like Mondays and Wednesdays, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because I was homeschooled so I could work. Tuesdays and Thursdays I would go and I would babysit all day for the family who started the lawn care company, and I ended up working for them later.
For them,
and so their baby was 4 months old at the time, and I was 16, and I was their first nanny. So the mom, her name's Misty. Misty would stay, at the house doing her work in her office, and I was just taking care of Harper. And then I stayed with them for a long time till I was 19. I would babysit for them in high school and college, and then that's really kind of where I got my start. I just found I enjoyed working.
I would say since the time I knew you in college, you've always been entrepreneurial, you just went after it.
Yes.
What advice would you have for your women that are also looking to pursue their entrepreneur passion?
I would say honestly, like really like breaking the gender norms is like, I do believe in men having strengths and women having different strengths too, but I do think in the workplace and in business, I choose to view everyone as equal. And so I'm not going to look at, a male like coworker and really think like, well, he's a man, so I'm not going to assign him this or whatever. Like, this is your job, you can do it. And I'll assign you what the job requires, And so I think going into everything with that mindset of, don't ever think that because you're a woman, and women maybe traditionally have been at home and haven't been an entrepreneur, like that doesn't mean you can't be one. And so just move forward with not even focusing on the fact that, you're a woman and maybe you're in a room full of men. Just, do the job. And if you're smart enough and you can do the job, who cares? You just get it done.
Right.
That's really great. So what about for somebody, we talk about women of course, that isn't right there and they don't know where to start. They might have an idea, or they might have funds, right? Where they want to start a business, but they don't know where to start. What kind of advice, or what can you tell them where to start, what to do, so that it can help them to get themselves into business? So I would say the first place to start is the only thing I don't like about really the accessibility we have with the internet today is that it has created a bit of that side hustle culture where everyone thinks they're an entrepreneur, and everyone thinks that, just because I started my little dog walking side hustle, that I am now a business owner and I know how to run a company. No, you don't. Love that.
And also you might not even be that smart. And a lot of people, and also just because you heard the word passive income and you think, first of all, there's no such thing as passive income. And no such thing. And secondly, it takes a lot of work to get your money to work for you in a way where it's passive income, where you see all the things of people posting on Instagram, I made $5,000 while I was sleeping today. And it took a lot of work to get to that point. Some of it might not even be true. It's just social media posts. A lot of time a lot of times the post itself made more money than whatever it was they were posting about that they said made so much money. So I would say, so sorry, to get back to your question.
No, go ahead.
To get back to your question, I would say, like, if you're trying to start a business, the first thing you have to do, you can't just start a business to start a business. You have to figure out what excites you and what you're passionate about, because everyone is passionate about the idea of passive income.
Yeah.
Everyone is passionate about, let me make my own schedule and be my own boss, you know? And so everyone, you know, wants to do that, but you that doesn't just happen, and it's not even in every business. And there's plenty of people that they really work what is that saying, you know, like, don't work for your business, work on your business, or, you know, whatever that saying is. It's kind of cliche saying, but essentially their business isn't making money for them. It's not smart money. Yeah.
It's losing money for them?
It might be losing money. It might be taking so much of their time that it's not, you know, it's not becoming what they thought. So you need to do a lot of research, and you really need to maybe start in something small. The thing is, if you're like 18 to 25 and you've never tried to ever start something a single day in your life, you have never come up with a creative idea, or you've never tried to sell something, like the kid who did a lemonade stand when he was 10 years old has a leg up on someone who is 18 years old and has never ever tried to start anything, or even maybe not even ever had a job, you know? And I don't want to hear from that person that they think they're an entrepreneur.
There's a lot of books that speak on this concept too.
Yeah.
But from that same age range that you just mentioned, I think that's the time where youth in general should take the most amount of risk that they can, because you have time. Essentially, you have time.
Essentially,
to be able to catch up from any mistakes that you can make. So, but that's the time. If you're ever gonna make any mistakes, make them when you're young. But if you take those risks, they can help you in the future.
And I think someone who's actually going to be a successful entrepreneur, and maybe they don't quite know where to start, but if they have it in them, they've tried it before. They've tried to start something before. Ideas have come to them, you know, if you really have it in you. And if you look back over your life and that's never happened to you, you've never thought of an idea of a business, or you've never thought of something to sell or whatever, then you probably don't have it in you, and you should probably be an employee, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know? And so I think there's, first of all, that there's a lot of people that are, you know, think they want to start a business that would be eliminated if they realize that. I think too, they don't understand what goes into it, and how much you really need to understand about money, and how much time it's going to take from you, and how much research you need to do, how much knowledge you need to gain, and then also how much you need to put yourself out there. And because to start a business, you have to literally be able to wear every single hat. You know, to be an employee, you do one thing, you do your job, your one job, and that's one small part. That's like my arm attached to the rest of my body, you know? But as the business owner, you are the entire body. You have to start it. And a lot of people really can't do that. But if someone really thinks they can, and they've started things before, or they've at least tried, because you don't have to be successful. I'm not saying you have to have started a successful business. You have to have at least tried. And honestly, you should fail. Hopefully you failed, because that means you got a failure out of the way, you know? And so I think the first step is really just like identifying if you have it in you. Maybe take a personality assessment before you go and spend the time it's going to take to start a business. Make sure you're cut out for it. And then if you are, and if you can get through that step, then maybe you have some, you know, ability to handle the longevity of work that's required to actually, you know, take something from beginning to end. So do that first step, figure out who you are and what you're good at and what you're passionate about, and come up with an idea. Even if you're just pull from anything you can and just constantly have an idea machine going in your head, and you'll start to come up with things. You'll come up with an idea, and then once you've come up with that idea, you have to validate that idea. So make sure it's a viable business. There's a real need for it. There's a real market for it. make sure it will actually make money. And then if that's the case, you need to plan out your steps with dates in mind. You need to say, like, this is the starting point, this is the end point, these are all the steps in between, and these steps need to be done by these specific dates. So I'm giving myself 1 week to do this. Because if you don't do that, it'll never get done. Yeah. So I would say that's like from a high level, that's kind of the steps you have to take. And then, you essentially identify your plan and execute that plan. And it'll evolve. You have to definitely give some leeway for it to evolve. There's plenty of products that took months, even years before market adoption. Also, there's products that started out as one thing and then evolved to something else by the time they actually were adopted in the market. So you have to have some flexibility within that, goal setting, but you need at least an initial plan and then kind of go from there and build on that.
Great. I really love this podcast. Like, this episode is like really educational, instructive. I really love it so far. And unless Taylor has a question, but I have this question that pops up in my mind to the point, like, most people today live in conformity, right? They try to conform to everything. So sometimes you ask somebody, like, why do you do this? Sometimes they tell you, I don't know. It's because Hannah is doing that.
I don't know.
It's because Taylor, like, I don't know, everybody does it. It's the trend.
Yeah.
So do you think, like, being entrepreneur, businessman or women, is it people are trying to be that because they try to conform, or it's really something that is normal to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, a businessman or woman?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it really is, I think it was, humans were supposed to have that in all of us, I think we're all supposed to create something, and even if it's on a very small level, like, within your specific job as an employee for a company, you come up with a new system or a new process, a new way to do something. That is a very minuscule way of, like, being an entrepreneur, of creating something new. And I think all of us have the ability as humans to create something new. I mean, that's how the world has gone from living in log cabins to where we're at right now. Yep. And so I think, yes, like, that is really the just foundation of all of us humans, is to continue innovating and continue creating new things. I think, unfortunately, as the population grows and as it continues to dumb down, because we're eating terrible food and big business and big government are taking over, big pharma, I feel like it's killing the creativity. And then there's one trend that really takes off and everyone just conforms to it because it's a way to feel connected and to feel like you fit in and you're part of something. And all humans need to feel like they're part of something, whether it's on a small level or like on a big scale. Like, that's kind of what we were created to feel as, like, connection and family and whatever. And I think the trends kind of help people attach to something. And I think, too, part of that is because innovation is dying and creativity is dying. And it's because we have so much big business, big government, big pharma that wants to kill, who humans really are, turn us into drones.
Why would you say that is?
Because the rich want to get richer.
Or innovation in general from our youth. People are scared. You think people are scared to just of the competition that's out there?
I think, yes. I think there's so much out there now. So much has been created that it's very easy to think, like, what can I possibly create that's not already created?
Not already out there.
Yeah, I think that's difficult. And it does take a lot of, like, just staying consistent with it. I mean, I've been trying to come up with ideas since I was, a kid. And I think I only now think I've finally started coming up with good ideas. Just in, like, probably the past year, to be honest.
That's right.
Yeah, but and I think it's taken me all those years to come up with stuff. But I think most people don't naturally, like, think that way. Not a lot of people do. I mean, the percentage of people that actually start a successful business is very, very small. And so, I think not a lot of people have the capacity or the natural tendency to think that way. And I kind of lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going with that with that sentence, but yeah, I think that's why. It goes back to like creating new things, and I think we do have a lot that's been created. I think we have a lot of pointless stuff that's been created too, and like sometimes you ever look at like products in the stores and you're like, why does this exist? Who's buying this product? You know, we have so many things that I think never needed to be created ever. So there's also like not a lot of thought being put into things anymore.
Well, the thing is, if you follow just the history, innovation doesn't follow trends.
Yeah.
No.
Look at people like Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
A lot of inventors who are inventing some of the greatest technology that we use now today, they had to go away from the norm. They weren't following the trend.
No, yeah, exactly.
In order for them to actually innovate. Now we see the benefit.
Yeah, I agree.
So that innovation doesn't follow a trend.
Because groupthink, you know, like it's the whole groupthink saying, and that's what really the government, the rich just trying to get richer, want us all to get clustered into groupthink so they can control us all. And so and I feel like that's been happening through all of history. It's just more obvious now, and it's on a bigger scale now than you know, we have the media really broadcasting it. So
that's great. So we really enjoy this, and I have just like this 3 final question that I would like to ask Anna.
I know, I'm sorry, I can talk a lot.
And no, we're good. I mean, we love this because the longer it is, the longer we got attention, people listen, people learn. Because you've talked about so many things that are a lot of challenges that so many people are going through out there. We've talked about traditional family, a traditional role of a man and a woman in the family, in a relationship, your business as a businesswoman, and then advice that you've given to people, especially women who want to get themselves in businesses, what they can do, how. So it's really educational, and I really hope that Taylor will talk to you, so we will have you next time here again, so that you know, it will be really a pleasure, like having you again. Trying to talk more about real estate, because that topic we have kind of like really put it aside. We didn't really dive too much into that. So because we really want to talk your journey into Navy, right? Like how, because we know how tough it is to be there. It's actually, from research, I don't know if I'm wrong, but it's almost 95% men there in the Navy, almost 95%. And being a woman, even though reserved, but still, you've made it, right?
Yes.
You've made it. And then I guess it was a tough route, trainings and all of this stuff. So it's really a great conversation that we need to get to. That's why I'm saying, like, Taylor can still talk to you. We can have you back again. It will be like really great to have you back.
It's hard it's hard to get her on the schedule.
Really? I know.
She's a busy woman.
I know. We try like 2-3 times that we have to be getting her on the schedule. No, you're good.
It's nothing wrong. It just means she's actually like
busy.
Focused on what she's doing.
Working.
You are so busy person, a busy person. But we will really want to have you back.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I've enjoyed the conversation. So thank you for having me.
Talking about real estate, because this podcast will really focus more into challenges, especially in business, in relationship, entrepreneurship, basically in life, you know. So advices, ways, tips, strategies are really welcome to have our listener and the people that are watching to really overcome something that they are going through in their lives. That's basically now telling me to ask you, like, Anna, what is, and definitely I'm going to ask you this question again when you will come for part 2.
Okay.
So imagine yourself in your deathbed.
Oh, wow. I did not expect that.
That's deep. What are you trying to get to here?
So you may be 80, 95, 100 years. We never know. Maybe. But just imagine yourself in your deathbed. What would you want people to remember about Anna?
That is such a good question. I feel like it's you really got to think about that one. But I mean I have thought about it before for sure, and I think I changed my answers over the course of my life as I've matured and I've learned new things. But I would say one of the biggest things I've learned, especially as of late, and I think it's very important to really touch on, because I do talk about making money a lot, and I really like to talk about money. But something I've learned that I think is really important to understand, and I definitely didn't have this point of view my whole life, is money really isn't the goal, and it shouldn't be, because it really can't buy you the most important things. Like there's like relationships I've lost, or friendships that I've lost that I could never possibly buy back. Like there's no amount of money that I could make. I could be the richest person in the world, but I couldn't buy that back. And so I think that is kind of a perspective I've really shifted in, and it's something that I think about, when I'm on my deathbed someday. I don't want to be, I like making money, but I don't want to be a Scrooge that's at my funeral with no one there but a ton of money. And so I think that I hope that what people, I guess, think of me or remember me for is that, one, I really just want to create something that helps the world. Like, I want to create something out of nothing, make something new that actually has an impact, and that actually, even if it's just making a software tool, I mean, that's going to help someone's job become better. It's going to create efficiencies in the marketplace. And if that's all the impact I have, I mean, I feel like I envisioned something that didn't exist, and I made it happen. And I think that's hard to do. So if I could be remembered for having innovated like that, that would be huge. And then two, I think it really comes down to I want to help people. And so I want to use any money that I make to, yes, I want to live a good life. Yes, I want to buy myself nice things. But I really want to use my money to solve problems in the world and to be able to actually help people. So I would say, being on my deathbed, I hope that I'm remembered for creating something and being able to be a good steward of what I have, and actually like making an impact on people and doing something that really, I hate to say the cliche phrase, but changes the world,
Definitely.
I would, yeah. Yeah.
So, Taylor, can you ask the second question?
I mean, I would say the second question is this: what is one thing? What is one advice that you've heard or you've shared that has really stayed with you and has impacted you to today? I think my dad has all these little sayings that he's really would kind of like drilled into me when I was really young, and that have really stayed with me. And I think one of the biggest ones was really to think before you speak. And I cannot tell you how many times, looking back in my life, I think back to certain situations and I think if I had just stopped and thought about what I was about to say, for just like a moment longer, I might still be friends with that person, or I might have not made this choice, or that I might not have bought this and wasted money, or whatever it is. So think before you speak, I think is a huge one. And there's so many others, but that one comes to mind immediately.
I love that. So, in the last question, what is the worst advice that you ever heard, received, or given?
Oh, that's tough. I feel like I try and surround myself with smart people, so I don't, which this is probably a good thing that I cannot immediately think of the worst piece of advice I was ever given. I will say, though, a funny piece of advice I heard lately was that you can drink wine in the morning if you want to because it's juice. That's what someone said. And I thought that is a great way to justify just waking up and just immediately wasting away. I'll drink alcohol sometimes. Like, I'm not against that, but it's just that mindset is a great way to just immediately wake up and waste your whole day.
Waste the whole day. So, that was incredible.
I just don't think that's a good piece of advice.
And to just, that was funny though.
Thank you.
To just finish this, I just want to have a daily reminder for everybody. As we've talked about relationships, we talk about all the business and everything. I feel like people should be reminded of this. It only takes 1 second to say, I love you. I apologize. Can we talk? You were right. I don't want to be at odds. Stop letting pride and ego hold you hostage from the happiness in life.
So true. So true.
I believe that was the conclusion of our episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, for listening. And if you have enjoyed it, keep it for yourself. Until then, see you to the next episode.